you say this time in the, is this late or early? Because
I don't even know anymore.
I've already had one. So, because I was up at 4.
Yeah.
So it's been, today will be my 4th flight in 5 days. This is my 4th day on a liquid only fast, and no calories in the liquid, right? So diet soda, coffee, water. And 2 of those flights were basically red eyes. So I'm going strong on this one. This is why it has to be my second of the day. But how are you doing? And it has been a minute. It has been a little while.
It has. I think so much has moved as well. I think that's the thing. I think with the topics we're so engaged at the moment around AI, this field is like nothing I've ever seen before. And it's like you blink and something's happened. I think last night we saw the design system announcement.
From Claude, you mean, right? Yeah. I got like 3 messages of that. And I woke up at 4, right? Because I went to sleep at 8. And it was like between 8 and 11 p.m. I'd got like 3 people messaging me like, this just came out. You got to go look at it.
It's crazy. I love it. But it's like, how do you keep pace with this? And I say this, hand on heart, knowing that I said this a year ago, and it's accelerating at a pace I've never seen. You have to deliberately choose the things you stay in touch with.
But wasn't that always the case where people were like, oh, I don't think you understand exponential growth and all this. And there's a lot we could talk about. I don't know. The thing that I've been having a conversation with at work this week is, we have a large organization. And so you have the classic bell curve where you have the people who are out in front. You have the people who are like digging in their heels, like, no, this will never replace me. And then you have sort of the messy middle. What I'm wondering is, the more that we say AI in terms of the word, does it just make everything worse? Right? If we're just like, we got a bunch of new tools. Yeah, like we got a bunch of new tools. What can we do with these things? Right? Like I feel because it is so saturated in the market that when you use that term, some people just turn off their brain. They're like, screw you, I'm not dealing with this, right? Like I don't believe in this. But if you're just like, hey, I went to Home Depot, I got some new tools in my toolbox, let's see what we can build. Like, I wonder if like the people who are forcefully digging their heels in, I wonder if it's a situation of the presentation versus the actual tools themselves.
Do you know, that's a great point. And it's something I had a bit of a crisis about last night. As you know, I'm working on my design system. This is a Cognition Drift exclusive for my Brockle design system, which I'm going to launch soon. It started off being a design system that was heavily baked into AI with a large language model behind a lot of it. And as I progressed, I stripped it out and started pulling all the large language model stuff out of it. So it's got no LLM at all in it anymore. It's all programmatic. It's all deterministic, deliberately. And I can go to why.
Okay, I think I can guess why, but go for it.
But then I get to the end and go, well, is this AI anymore? I mean, it's kind of programmatic. Is it just software now? Is AI just a buzzword now? Because whilst it started off there with an idea, it doesn't have any AI in it anymore. It was built with AI, and it's got a lot of logic within it, but it's very deterministic now. So is it just software?
Well, AI is just a big bucket term for like everything, right? Like God knows how many companies were doing software, and then 3 years ago it became AI enabled, even though it was the same software. So like, I don't know. We're overloading the term.
I agree. And it means so many things. And I think I see a lot of pushback against AI online, and largely it's around generative AI. People don't like the idea that it's replacing humans to do things. They don't like the idea of how it's changing output to dumb it down. They don't like the idea of it changing society and removing employment. And I kind of agree with that, but also it doesn't do a great job when you're using it for that. It's a good shortcut. It's a good prototyping tool, but I'm starting to think more and more I'm looking for ways I can take it out, not as a moral or an ethical stance, because I want a better output. So,
okay, let's talk about that, replacing humans. We have a chat with a fellow friend where every day we're sort of talking about what we're building. I think all of us are using Claude now. Yeah. I don't think any of us have ever necessarily been concerned over we're going to lose our jobs. We're more excited about what this enables all of us to do. Yeah. The fact that I can now, and I have built my own software. You are constantly building software. The other person, Ryan, is full on engineers, and he's he's building all of his own stuff. And to me, like the excitement we have around this, I don't think any of us have been like, oh yeah, we're going to get replaced. We're like, there's just a lot of exciting things here that we can now do that we couldn't do before.
Yeah, we talked last year about how this democratizes creativity and lowers the barrier of entry of ownership. And what I'm seeing is that I have a crazy demanding day job, and some of that involves delivering client work and working with teams working on quite complex things. We're doing booking systems for airlines and business management systems for mobile companies. But I look at the scale of them, and it doesn't slip my attention that I know how big these things are. I go home and then similar scale projects, I've got 4 of them running in parallel with agents running things. So I'm like, I've got a team of humans doing very smart things there, and I've got a team of agents working behind the scenes doing similar scale things.
Oh, I think you're going to end up with the middle being, do you say middle out? I don't know. But like, you're going to have we've talked about this like so many times, the director layer and then the junior layer and the problems moving up. Where was I going to go with that? Building your own. Oh, one thing that I really have become stuck on. I'm just going to go all over topics because we've been talking for 4 weeks now and we haven't been able to sit together. With all of us building our own software,
yes,
there seems to be this thought or trend, and I see this all over LinkedIn, that will be software is all going to be personal now, right? And I push back on this heavily.
I agree with you now because I was there and I'm not anymore.
So why? Okay, tell me your story on why you changed.
So I think I've seen some patterns emerging because I'm on a few Claude development groups. So you see people building tools and you start to fall into the pattern, and I certainly fell into this pattern where the tool that everybody builds to start with is their operating system, their buddy to help them do things. And people get very excited about this and they build brains and things to manage stuff. And I went down this route. I built this ridiculous intelligent system that was self-evolving and learning. And it was a fun passion project. I stopped using it though because I'm like, I don't really need it. So everybody builds these things that they think they need. How much do they actually use them when they build them? How much are they passion projects that are almost like hobbies that you build it because you can? And I see a lot of people posting these things. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Looks like it might be quite useful. To you, I wouldn't use it. And the things that I use, genuinely I use myself, are very stripped back. They're very simple. They're command line stuff. I have got a few hooks and skills in Claude that I use, but I don't overload it because what I need evolves so fast. There is no point me building. I'm better off having tools that the biggest tool, or that's probably not the right word. The biggest tool in it is me, but that's the reality, is that I evolve as much as my tools evolve.
I really like what you said about keeping it simple. The reason why is when the war first broke out, I think all of us, you, me, and Ryan, were working like 16, 20-hour days, just having both with the insanity of the war, but also having fun on the AI side because we didn't have anything else to do. You're just stuck inside. So, okay, that's where all of us really started like chatting up and talking. And what I found is I started to build stuff for me. I was trying to replace myself. I was like, let me see if I can put myself out of a job, because I want to do that first before anybody else does.
That's an interesting concept.
But what I found, I mean, I think that's a good business concept, right? You want to cannibalize yourself first so that you can figure out where to move next.
You can do something else. Yeah, I love that.
But what I found was I built a bunch of like little software pieces that would review Figma files for like heuristic evaluations or usability, or would go into a benchmark and pull out insights. I wrote a bunch of skills for it. And it was, let's say at the height, maybe 30 or 40% of the output was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Getting good output that is for anybody or other people is really hard. Because I'd read the output and I would say like, okay, scratch that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to use that. Okay, scratch that. Because I knew it wasn't going to be all perfect. But if I sent it to anybody else on the team, they would write back and be like, most of this is crap. Why are you sending this to me? I was like, what? Ignore the crap.
Yeah, look at the good bits.
They're like, why do you want me to read the crap? Yeah. Like So what I see, and this is classic with any tool or just any industry, it's really easy to get that first, 50%.
Yes.
It is somewhat difficult to get to 80%. It is damn near impossible to get to 100%. So I think we're going to have a market flooded with 50% pieces of software that are made for individuals. You know, like
which is okay.
You're putting out some stuff. I'm thinking what I can do as well. I know we have other people in the office who are. It's a really interesting concept to democratize full software, but I think there's still a need for, I don't know if you want to say teams or companies, but time.
Yeah.
Time.
I'll give you the example. The video thing that I'm working on at the moment, I got a working prototype together in a day. Literally a day. I had someone on a call in the UK talking to me in Dubai, and we had a conversation using something I'd built literally within 8 hours. And I think that's a lot of people see that and say, I can get Claude, I can get AI to build me an app just with vibe coding, I can do that. And they think that's the end of it. That was day one. About a week after that, I then spent actually adding all the features and bug fixing it. Another week after that, I spent another week properly bug fixing it. And then, okay, it's never feature complete, but it's a point where it's useful. So 2 weeks down the line, I'm like, okay, I've got something else I can start properly using. I then needed to security harden it, and that took another week and all the bugs that came out of that. And I'm now looking at beta testing it with people. I'm on week one of that. So I'm about 4 or 5 weeks in from now, and I'm still not at a point I can launch it yet. I'm getting close, but that first day is what everybody sees and what says, well, that's how long it takes to build stuff. Sort of.
So can I give you, I don't know if paradox is the right word. You and a bunch of other people are building software that are for themselves, but launching it for other people who are building software for themselves, right? So it's this weird situation. Okay,
no,
okay, go for it. Go for it.
So there's a few distinctions in there, and I would say I'm building stuff because I have a bug in me that is driven to build things. I think it's what's been behind me my whole career is that I'm not a sales guy. I never have been. I'm not a relationships guy. I need to build things. It's why when I move into leadership, I have to be close to the weeds, and people know I get into the weeds probably more than I should. But I need to build things. So I have a drive in me to build this. I would build whatever, whether it's in software, whether it's in other things. I've always built. So it's scratching that itch. Who am I building it for? Well, I need to have a use for it, sort of, or I need to see that somebody else has a use for it, and I build for them. Is it somebody else who's doing the same thing? I'm not sure it is, because I don't think everybody is builders. I think there's a difference. I think there are people who definitely have to build. I think there's people who would like to build but don't have the tenacity to go through it, and that's okay. Not everybody's motivated. And there's people who just want to use good things, and they'll use it and they'll throw it away and replace it with something else good. And that's good too. So I don't think everybody is a builder.
No, and I do agree with that. I wonder at what point my opinion might change, but because
it's certainly opened up because now everybody can. No, you don't have the limitations.
Yes, and so while we say everybody can, I don't think that's really true, right? Like you and I, we work in software. We have worked in software our lives. So when you have a tool like Claude Code or Claude in general, yes, you and I can use it because we're in software. And even, I'll come out and ask you and Ryan questions. And both of you were like, these are so simple questions. I'm like, I don't know the answer to them.
No, but you add a different layer that I don't onto it. And this is all about joining the dots. I will join dots in a certain way. They're different to how you join the dots and they're different to how Ryan joins the dots. And everybody has a different nuance on it.
Yes. But I still think that in order to use the software, there is some level, there's a barrier to entry. Right, the way that I got over this was literally the first weekend the war broke out. I did not leave my apartment, and for 16 hours, I'm like, I'm just gonna use this. Right, I'm just gonna try this and test it, and it was just 16 hours nonstop of doing that for a Saturday and a Sunday, and then after that, I was like, okay.
Because you were using Claude before me.
I was, yeah. What you said, the third group of people who just want to use good things. I actually do believe that while there is any barrier to entry, you will have the majority of people who will be happy to, I don't want to say be lazy because that sounds insulting, but take the quickest path out. Convenience. Yeah, a better word. I also think there is something that people haven't mentioned around common models. So the idea that the piece of software that I use is the same one that you're using. I think there is something inherently powerful about that, right? Like we were talking this morning about Discord with gamers. Yeah. Discord is the same for everybody and Twitch is the same for everybody. And we know that and we get on it and we like the platform.
Let me put a commercial aspect on this because one of the things that I'm going through at the moment is orchestration frameworks. So we've just had an announcement that Claude's doing managed agents, which is huge. There's open source things like the BMAD method. And I started building something myself because I'm like thinking we should take control of this, we should own it. And I had a really good conversation with somebody at my work this week around what we're doing with this, who's completely changed my mind on it. And the point is that you might be able to build something better. You might be able to build something proprietary, which is more controllable, more useful, more extensible than stuff that's out there. But a lot of our customers are very large financial institutions, very large corporates. And they have to go through hoops and obstacles and get things approved. And the simple fact is, at the moment, BMAD is approved. So do you want to fight for 6 months to get your proprietary thing, which nobody's ever heard of, through that system? Is that valuable to you? Or do you want to engage off the back of something which has already crossed that hurdle and make it better? And so I've completely taken a step back and said, okay, let's build on common foundations. Let's take tools that are there, common models, and work out how we can leverage them, because not everything has to be built from scratch.
I'm glad I brought my notebook because you're giving me a lot to respond to. One thing that just popped into my head when you were talking about like banks redoing their core banking system, or a company completely redoing their CMS for 300 localized sites all across the world, right? Those are really large scale implementations.
Yeah.
And I'm going to park that for a second, come back to that on the enterprise side. But even on the personal side, we have had the ability for God knows how long to build our own houses, right? How many people do that?
I'm not sure I live in a house I built.
Well, me either. But yeah, it's like, it's not incredibly difficult to build a basic house, right? But nobody does it. Yes, there's like
That's
land.
a really good analogy, actually.
But what I was thinking is like, okay, so you have your house, like we can all build it. And again, you can build a tiny house and things like this. And then you can build condos. And condos, you're like, I need a serious, I can maybe build my own house. Me and a couple friends, or me and some general contractors.
You should YouTube that. You can get. I'd be your
not me
subscriber.
personally, but yeah, you get some general contractors. You can do it.
Yeah.
But with a condo building or any of these buildings that you see in Dubai that are 80 floors high, you need a serious company to come in and do that. Yeah. When I hear people like Infosys or Sapient or Accenture or TCS isn't going to be around, I'm like, that to me doesn't make sense, because you still have these very large scale items, or at least let's say for the next decade.
It's risk management.
Yeah. Let's say for the next decade. And what you just said about purchasing things for procurement, large companies have compliance, have regulations, have all these things. So you can't just spin up your own stuff all the time. Maybe, in 5 years, yes, they will. But 2 years ago, you had people like, we're all going to be out of jobs in 2 years. 1 year ago, you had the same thing. Right now, people are saying the same thing. I'm like, and when we started this, whatever it was a year ago, I was like, I don't believe it. I still don't believe it. Like, things are just changing. And it sort of like, it boggles my mind how much excitement I have for this because of how much it's changing, but how much people are still like losing their minds over it. I'll stay away from the profanity. I just finished a book this morning called If Anybody Builds It, Everybody Dies.
Yes, I know that. I haven't read it, but it's on my list, yeah.
And it's interesting. And mostly...
Is it good?
It's okay. I don't think it's anything new. Okay. Right? So I would sort of skip it. But for people who haven't read 10 or 20 AI books, not a bad one. Most of the thesis seems to be around like, once you build something that's smart enough, you can't control it and you won't know what it will do. And so because of that, you don't know, like we don't know the 50 different, future paths of death that could happen. So when we had atomic weapons, you can sort of have some phone calls with other world leaders and be like, hey bro, you're not going to blow me up, right? I won't blow you up either. You don't blow me up, right? But with AI, once it gets smart enough, that sort of ability to lose control of it. Like if somebody turns on a fire hose and nobody has control over it, and it's just, you can't turn it off and you're like, oh God.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I read it. Oh, I wasn't read. I didn't read so much anymore. But Sam Altman I think I might have shared that with you. Sam Altman had a speech on the different types of AI that people are worried about.
You didn't, but you should.
I will do then. He boils it down to 3. I don't know if I can do this off the top of my head though. Where you've got one where the computer takes control and we can't stop it is one. The other one was, I can't remember the first one. It's not the interesting one. The last one is where the computer takes control. The AI takes control insidiously. So it doesn't actively take over. We get to the point where we're so reliant on it. It's so baked into everything. But what happens when we get to the point where, and I love this, where the president of the US or wherever can't give a better answer than comes out of Claude. So where you ask it a question and the best answer comes from Claude, not from the president. At that point, we're so reliant and so dependent on AI that it is part of our societal network, and we can't extricate ourselves from it, or we shouldn't. I think that is a different type of takeover than any necessarily hostile one, and I don't think it's any less dangerous for us as a species. But then we're getting into really science fiction territory.
So I wrote down some science fiction things here. I'll go a little bit one step further, right? So when the US was really afraid of TikTok and all this was happening,
Yes.
the sort of theory was by controlling an algorithm of what I see, you can start to control my perspective on things. To me, that is the more dangerous thing with AI, that if the world around me is shaped by a force like that needs me to do something, but I don't recognize it. Right. And so I'm just doing things that I think are right, that because that's how I'm presented reality. But actually everything's completely different outside of whatever bubble this is. And the easiest way to talk about that is like, let's take something like North Korea, right? Where it's like you live in a bubble. You don't realize maybe that things are completely, batshit crazy. And so you could look at that from a variety of perspectives where it's like things either become so convenient or you just don't realize what's going on.
There's a bit in there about how much influence we really have. It's something actually Ryan made me think about. And it was when he was trying to convince me to start using Claude through the terminal, through the command line interface.
Do you do that?
Oh, yeah.
I still don't yet. I use it sometimes. Okay, go ahead.
You spend an hour doing that, it will blow your mind.
No, I do. I go back and forth, but it's probably 20% command line and 80% app.
Right, quick sidetrack.
Okay.
I now have my Windows set up where I discovered virtual desktops. They have changed my life. I never knew about virtual desktops. Do you use virtual desktops on Macs?
No, I don't use them, but I like.
Oh my life!
Yeah, these have been around forever. How do you not know about these?
But now I have about 25 software projects at the moment that are in different states, and I manage about 6 or so at a time, with a focus on about 3 or 4 of them. So I'll have 3 or 4 running in parallel as well. If Claude's doing something, I switch to the next one.
Yeah. I do similar.
I have a separate desktop for each one, and I'll set off Rockall. I'll get that going. It'll do something. I'll switch to Nexus, and I'll do the video stuff, and then I'll switch to the spec on the next one. And I just have everything set up like that.
But why don't you just run different terminal windows? Why do you need a different virtual desktop? What is that doing for you?
So the desktop will have multiple terminal windows on it. It will have a PowerShell prompt. It will have Claude set up. It will have my WhatsApp on every screen so I can talk to you guys at the same time.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
so it's like I just walk to a different machine. So now I'm going to do the video. It is unbelievably powerful. Because before I was setting up my desktop with I built a tool, this is a personal software thing. I built a little management thing which would lay out my desktop to do that. It was pretty good. It wasn't amazing. And then I virtual desktops and never looked back. And I am so productive with this. My computer is running probably 4 to 10 Claude terminals at any point in time.
I need to get better at this. I'm still far behind you. I'm going to throw you something. I can't remember if we've brought this up here or if I brought it up with Robert in past podcasts. If you have whatever this AI intelligence, general intelligence, super intelligence, whatever you want to call it, where it becomes, again, self-aware. I hate the buzzwords. You have something that is
autonomous is a better word, I think.
Okay, yeah. Autonomous.
It doesn't matter if it knows about stuff, it's still doing stuff.
Yeah. So you have something that is omnipresent, like everywhere at all times. So this is. Okay, I'm going to tie this back. In the late 90s, there was a Japanese animation called Lane. And this was pretty... Okay. Nobody really knows this because it was really old. Well, now it's really old, 30 years. But here's the genius of it. It literally talked about being connected to what they called the wired, which was the internet.
Okay.
And how in this space you had this being that was omnipresent, everywhere, controlled things. So you go back to the TikTok controlling your feed. and then they labeled it God, because at that point it's like, no, I'm very curious because
can we make our own God?
Well, and so now that I've read, let's see, The Empire of AI and Supremacy, so 2 books about the San Francisco culture of AI. I believe in both of those books, they talk about there is this idea within like the valley of, are we creating this sort of omnipotent presence? I don't know if you want to say God or not, but let's say omnipotent presence.
So omniscient is
omniscient.
Omniscient in terms of it knows everything. Sure.
Was I using the wrong word?
Well, omnipotent, it means it can do everything. Omniscient means it knows everything. I think the idea of God is both,
interesting.
But
yeah.
I would say no. I think we can make it look like that, but I think there are always limitations because we're human apart from anything else, and even the things that we built, because we built them, have limitations. I think those limitations might get less and less, but I think you start to get to quite crazy out there.
And the coolest thing I've heard in the last few months was somebody was talking about alchemy. And I think this was on an A16Z podcast. Did I tell you this one?
No, but
no. All right, so it was like, there was this whole desire in the Middle Age or whatever to turn lead to gold and the process of alchemy. And the person said, right now we turn sand into thought.
Yes.
And I was like,
no, you have to.
I was like, God damn.
Really good.
It's like, that is such a cool thing to think about.
Do you know what you made me think about when you talk about TikTok? There was a big push, when was it? A couple of years ago, about the worry about how much TikTok influence has on society. And China.
That was the whole US thing,
China stopped TikTok, from what I remember, that they limited TikTok exposure to kids. The other thing I heard recently was that, and it was a thing to say, well, let's push it on the West, and the West their society will get dumbed down, whereas ours won't.
Well, they split it, right? So there's the Chinese version and the American version.
Yeah, and I don't know too much about this, but I've heard recently that China started making AI free for use, which is crazy when you think about if you start to say your whole society becomes AI native, and you take away the barriers, which is quite often cost. I look at how much money Claude takes off me at the moment, and it is a barrier. If you take that away, what does it mean for your society?
It's interesting thinking about AI as an economic power. Similar, I mean, you could say it's similar to an atomic weapon. It's just not necessarily about destruction. It's about creation. I'm going to go back to something you said, and I forget what caused me to write this down, but you mentioned science fiction. And so it was this idea of, with everything solved, do we go back to like the Star Trek thing where it's our job is to now explore? That's the human condition. Oh, that's what you were saying. Like, what happens when Claude can give a better answer than the president, right? So everything becomes solved for us. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before of like, do we revert to the humanities? Do we have another Renaissance period, right? Because we're looking at the arts and we're looking at poetry.
The question is, who's going to pay for that? And I think that's the big imminent problem we're going to solve, because our labour force is going to get transformed dramatically. I'm not quite as optimistic as you are about that jobs will just change. I think there is going to be impact, and I'll stay on the fence. I'm not sure how big that's going to be. It could be huge, and it could be very painful. And I think government has to step in to work out how do people still get money to pay for their rent and pay for their food. And I don't think we've seen the answers yet. I think that problem is going to get thornier.
I am willing to be wrong on that, right?
Well,
like, and I do,
be right.
yeah, and I do worry that I'm wrong, right? Like, in the back of my head, I'm like, am I just saying this story to myself to make myself feel better, right? That like, oh, I don't need to worry about my job, and also, I'm saying it as someone who is heading towards 50 and knows that I have 20 years left in my career. But if I was, I don't think I'll stop working until I die. Honestly, like I love what I do. But if I was somebody who was, in their teens or early 20s, would I be much more terrified? Because I'd be like, well, for the next 10 years, I'm okay. But
here's the thought: would you go to college? Would you go to college now? If you were 18 now,
I would.
Ending school.
Yeah. Finish the thought, and then I'm going to tell you why I would.
Would you? So you've just finished. You just got good grades in your final exams. You've got to make that decision. You applied for a college. You got a place, and your choice is: do you go and do that, or do you start something yourself? Because I think that's the answer now. That's
been the last 20 years for Silicon Valley, right?
Yes.
Like, people are saying, do you need to go to university, college? Here is my take on this.
20 years ago, I would have said, no question, go to college because you get more from it. Now?
So let me tell you why I think it's important to go to university. However, I think you can recreate that in other situations. The things that university gave me, and I'm doing this off a sample size of 1, it allowed me to see other people within my field and assess where I sat. What I see so oftentimes with people that just spin up products is a delusion that they are somehow at the top of their game when they're like a 2 out of 10, because they haven't had that calibration ability where they've sat in a class of 50 and sort of said, oh, those are the really, smart ones. Those are the art kids. Those are the goth kids, right? Go back to high school. That's one of the biggest things it gave me, that like that. And then what you, myself, and Ryan have, which I think is honestly something that has made me the happiest I've been in years, that group chat, because it feels like university. And it feels like you're with other people doing something common and doing something together. That could be a company.
Yeah, I get
right?
so much
from
that. I get so much from both you and Ryan. Both add different things into it. It's huge.
And it's so much fun. And I know between us, you mentioned that you went to sleep at like 2:30. You were up at 7. Like when I started using this,
I could not wait to get back to it.
And so when I started using Claude, right at the beginning of the war, you'd wake up at 2 or 3 a.m.
Is that what we're saying now at the beginning of the war? That's our life now?
That's our, well, I'm just using it because that was an inflection point because I couldn't go out, or I didn't go out. And so I just sat inside. So I was like, I'm going to learn this. So for me, that was an inflection point. Where was I going with this? Damn it. The camaraderie aspect of things. You would get an alert at 2 or 3 a.m. Because of the incoming missiles. And from that point, I'd wake up and I'd be like, I want to work on this stuff. And then I'd just get up at 2 or 3 a.m. and be like, I'm just going to start working, right? And you guys saw the messages, and there was such excitement. And I haven't felt that level of excitement, but I did feel it in university. So if there is an institution, it doesn't need to be 4 years.
Yeah, I didn't get that from university.
Okay.
I think that's the challenge.
So and that's the thing. This could be a great co-working space. It could be a community.
I really like that. I really like that. The idea of a co-working space where, sorry to sidetrack you again, but you made me think that actually the university experience is really good if you engage with it for a certain type of person. And I think probably I wasn't really suited to university, and it's a big sort of cookie cutter mold. It does a lot for a lot of people.
I think without university, I'd be working at a gas station. Like I don't think if I didn't have that forceful structure around me. Like when I was younger, I went to Montessori school.
Yeah, okay.
And I came out dumber than I went in, because all I did was figure out how not to do work.
Right, okay.
And it was horrible. So I think for me, I need structure. That's why I say I'm going to be working until I die. I just need that structure in my life, but that's me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I think probably universities need to change. Higher education needs to evolve as we start to understand that cookie cutter approaches, they work really well for a big bunch of people, but they don't work well for everybody. But if you had the ability to build an adaptive education system that made it so it was the right solution for everybody, and I think that is the role of education, to evolve to do that, then it becomes more interesting. Right now, looking at universities now, for me, I would not go. I don't think I'd be smart enough back at 18 to be able to make that decision. But if it was me now with a choice at age of 50-something, making it again, I would not go to university now because I'm self-motivated enough to do it. But was I 18? Yeah, probably not.
See, it's funny. I want to go back to university. I want to go back and do a master's now.
Every day feels like school day, honestly.
I'm going to throw a few things at you. And these are going to be in no particular order because I was just writing them down. But when you talked about universities being like cookie cutter, right? So you have sort of the same formula that you apply. Follow me on this. One of the things I really dislike about the term autism, or people saying I'm autistic or not, is autism is a massive spectrum of just behavioral issues.
So I believe there are autistic traits which are on a spectrum. I've had this argument with a friend who's got an autistic child, and he very strongly puts me on my place and said, my child is autistic, you have autistic traits, they're not the same thing.
And I can agree with that. Yeah. And I've only scratched the surface of reading into it. I don't
know too much about this. So.
But what I don't like is someone who will just I don't know, have a moment of whatever and be like, I'm autistic. And you're like, no, stop. Like that's just insulting.
Yeah, I agree.
But what you said, traits, right? And so yes, there are traits. How I would look at that is there's sort of the spectrum of traits, and at some point you can get to the level of like nonverbal and situations that will really impact your life. At other points, you just have this like lower end of the spectrum, and you're like, okay, you know, there are behavioral issues that I need to cope with in terms of quote unquote normal society, but that's okay, right? And again, keep following me here. Where this becomes interesting to me is I'm dyslexic. I'm fairly heavily dyslexic. I did not read a single book through high school or university. Reading to me is one of the most painful things, like physically reading. However, I loved being read to. I love listening, which is why when audiobooks came out, I started listening to audiobooks like all the time. And it's what I still do now. Now I'm up to like 80 a year or so. And it has been game changing for me. And so I go back to university where it was cookie cutter, but I figured out different ways around it, right? I went to the Library of the Blind because I could get a pass for that and I could get books on tape, right? But I think if you were to open up universities,
it's a great source of resources.
To be different. But that's one of the reasons why I will defend things like
there's some amazing people. But that's what I really regret about my university time is that there were some incredible professors there that I just didn't understand, didn't appreciate, and I didn't engage with. And I look back and go, oh, that person was there at the time I was there. What was I doing? Why didn't I tap into that?
Well, the thing that I was going for, it's like university presented me with a specific way of learning that did not fit me. I was lucky enough to figure out how I could learn on my own and how I could progress. However, I think if universities offered more options or more abilities for people to learn, and this is why I love technology and AI specifically. Like right now I got 11 Reader on my phone. So when I get really long articles that you or Ryan send me, I throw that in and I have a nice voice read it to me. And it is the greatest thing ever. But I would without this technology, I don't think I would be where I am. I would not be here because I just would never have that chance to learn.
I feel like the recent stuff has unlocked something in me that I've had a limited ability to tap into in the past, but this is just like the floodgates have opened now. And it's basically what I find I do is I problem solve. So I'll take something and I problem solve it. And it's probably because I'm rabidly ADHD and refuse to get diagnosed, but that's okay. It helps me now. I find though that it's like crack. It's like doom scrolling, that when you're problem solving one after another, particularly when you start stacking up your stupid virtual desktops and you've got 10 on the go at once, I'm literally just moving one to another. It is like doom scrolling. It is dopamine chasing. And I find I'll get to like 2 a.m. and I should be going to sleep. Oh no, I've got a podcast with Joe in the morning. What the hell are you doing still awake? I'll step away. I'll force myself to complete something, step away, and then I'll go and lie down going, oh, I've just had a great idea for something else. I'm like, stop it, go to sleep.
Do you think though, because I do very similar things, right? Well, I'll have a few terminals open. I'm not at your level, but you were saying that ADHD thing. This hasn't been helped by working in the Middle East because I think you're so reactive to everything. But one of the biggest things I've struggled with when I sit down and try to build is to really have that 2, 3, 4 hours or even 8-hour, 12-hour just focused session on this thing I am solving a problem for. And so what you're saying is just like, hey, you're bouncing around all these different things.
I do both now.
But
and it helps. Sometimes it's flow state, I think, is part of it.
Yeah, whatever. You can lock in, flow state, whatever.
But sometimes I do better. It's like last night I focused on Nexus, the video thing, and I got a lot through that. And I didn't dot about too much, but normally I'm doing that and Rockwell at the same time, to be fair. I'm doing 2. But normally I've got like 4 to 6 going, and I make progress with all of them. But is it more progress than if I focus on one? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't, well, not just do I not know, but I think here's maybe my hypothesis. You're making general progress across all of them, but what we said at the beginning of the podcast, you're going to get to that 50% mark.
Yeah.
But getting to the 80% mark or the 90 or 95%, that requires the focused like 8, 12-hour sessions, because you really have to say like, what am I, like you're really pulling apart problems. You're really thinking through things deeply at that point.
So one thing I like that I've got as a setup, you can set this up in Claude if you haven't done it already, where I have a wrap-up feature which basically logs everything I've done, commits it to Git, and then stops it, and I have a restart so then I can close the terminal and restart and start it again. That allows me to basically keep my context low and manage my tokens. But
yeah, I struggle with that. Yeah.
One of the things it also does is it writes next steps. So it goes through and when I've been talking to it about stuff, it will collate them and it will tell me this is what you're doing next. So when I restart, it says, these are the things you've got on. I'm like, oh, okay, I thought I knew what I was going to do, so I better do those first. I'm like, okay, we're going to do those then. And then we come back to it. And that helps me keep momentum. But I would say when I dot across lots of things at once, I think my engagement with the problems is less than if I focus on one. So it's still moving, but it's the AI steering more and me steering less when I do that, which isn't always a bad thing. But
there's a book called Co-Intelligence, and I can't remember the author, but I was just talking to friends about it, where it has the whole hypothesis of invite AI in at all times, right? Yes, there is a barrier at first because you have to get used to it. Treat it like a person, which is what you just did, right? Like you can say assistant, that sounds demeaning, but I don't mean it. Like you and I.
It feels like a partner at the moment. It doesn't feel like a minion. It feels like a partner.
Exactly. And like that's the same thing. Like sometimes I'll wake up and I'll check messages from you and you'll be like, yeah, you need to do this next. I'll be like, well, I thought I knew what I was going to do today, but that sounds like a good plan. Sure, right? So it's a good tag team. The other thing, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to something from like 20 minutes ago. China was hosting all of these like workshops across all of these cities for OpenClaw, for people to set up OpenClaw. Cool. Like even having people like dressed up. I haven't either, but I really desperately want to. But I haven't.
I don't think I'm interested in it, to be honest. I think the level we're working is it's for a level above that, and that's the same with Claude Code.
You think it's a level above?
Like Claude Desktop, I don't bother with either, but I don't see the point.
Really, like Claude Desktop is all 80% of what I use.
So I live in the terminal is a thing. What do you do? So let's do this now. What do you do with Claude Desktop? Tell me how you work.
I almost never use. So there's 3 sections, right? So there's chat, there's co-work, and there's code. 99% of the time, I'm between co-work and code.
What do you do in co-work?
Co-work is where I like work in an individual folder and then I will build skills and I will evaluate content in that folder. So I'll say like, here's a Word document.
For me.
I'm like, yeah, here's a Word document. Here's a presentation. I've written all these skills on doing assessments based on how I think. So one of my questions I always ask my team is like, so what? Okay. Right? Somebody will present something to me and I'll say, okay, as the executive in the room, what do you want me to walk away with? Right? What's like, so what? Because you're telling me a lot of information, but you're not giving me the takeaway. So that's one of the biggest things.
So how do you do that though? Tell me.
So I will feed it in so I'll have a folder on the desktop and then I'll feed it in documents from that folder. I'll say, go and check out this document and then run it against, and I have the so what skill. I have the so what roadmap. I will have, sometimes it will be like build me a narrative from this. So I'll say, take a deck that we've done that I don't think has a very strong narrative. Now I'm going to feed that in. I'm going to run that against the so what skill and the narrative skill that I have. And I'm going to say, build me a narrative that tells me a clear point at the end around what this company that we're pitching needs to do, right? Because a lot of times I think within the proposals that we present, they tell you a lot about what we're going to do, like the technical aspects of it. And like, yes, it is some of the deliverables, but there's not a compelling story that's really built around it. And I feel like that's one of the things that my capability or my craft or my skill brings is we have the ability to tell a story that sticks with you when you walk out of the room. And that's what I want. And so that's what I'll use that for is I'll say, build me a narrative for this, right? And it'll spit something out that's 50% good enough, but then I might be able to say, build me 10 narratives. And I'll just read through them quickly and be like, this one's good. Okay, feed that back in. Now run this against this other skill. And I want you to rebuild the narrative and think that you are like you're this person. And so that's how I use it a lot. Okay. That's how I use co-work. For code, I use it to build my own software.
So I use code in a terminal a bit like that, but I'll do it, they're all one-offs. So I'll do a similar thing, but I'll do it as a one-off. If I find I'm doing it a lot repeatedly, I'll build something to do it. And I think this is a nice step in between where you're building skills to do it. I would build a tool, like a piece of a web page probably to do something like that. This is a quicker way of doing it, I think, and probably a more controllable.
I did. So I built my own software to do this. But what I have found is I like to iterate. And I think that's one of the things when you tell stories or when you do design work, it's fundamentally different from code because code works or it doesn't. Like one of the reasons that Claude or OpenAI or anything can be so good at code is because there are repeatable things that I just heard this recently. It's like every piece of software has already been written. You're just recompiling things in different ways, right? And so it's just taking all these things and saying, okay, I'm going to recompile these in different ways. But with something like user experience, you're trying to tell a story that is playing to a unique context, situation, user group, audience. And so because of that, things get to be a little bit more unique or less deterministic.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of times designers struggle with LLMs or with Gen AI in general, because it is probabilistic, not deterministic. So when you're creating screens over and over, it's going to make little shifts on the screens, and you're like, well, I can't work like that. Yeah. There are ways around that.
That's why I changed the brand intelligence thing. Yeah. Exactly that, because I want to be able to put the same brief in and get the same answer out.
So that's why I use something like Cowork over building my own software. I have built my own software for that using Claude Code.
I think it's really smart.
But I find that, okay, if I want to iterate on it, I'm just going to end up rebuilding Cowork in my own software. And I'm like, there's already a better tool for this, so why would I use it?
But I love this because you work in a completely different way to me.
I do, yeah.
And there's a great book called Steal Like an Artist, which I love. And this is that. It's like you listen to what other people are doing, you thieve from it whatever you can, and you put it into your own process, and you'll come up with something new and beautiful and different. And I think that's great. I loved going through, rampaging through GitHub repositories and saying, okay, I like the look of that. Let's see what I can steal from it and put into mine, and my thing will be different. And
that is so cool, because I don't really know how to effectively use Git, so I'll just feed a link into Cowork and be like, tell me what this is and how I can use it. But we need to wrap up. We are now about to hit our time limit. So, and I need to go to the airport.
Yes.
Get my next flight. But Dunbar, it's been great. And now we're both back here. We're both stable. So I will see you again next week.